This is
no good. Oh, this is terrible.
There are going to be ramifications for this going forward.
And it's just...
That's what it sounded like last night on ESPN. Kansas State at the end. An all-out brawl, bench-clearing brawl that leaked over into the stands as Rivs put in the document. That was the disabled section of the part of the arena. I got questions on why the disabled section's right there on the floor. I mean,
it's probably about access.
Easier. Yes, access is probably
Stairs.
easier, but I do agree with you that maybe some sort of barrier between the court and...
I mean, that was too easy to get there. I mean, that's 6'10" standing over people
with a
right
chair.
there, man.
Yeah, but 90% of the time you don't want that barrier, right? I mean, it's way more cool if you're just like on the court. It's just
but the one
time where
that this can
D'Souza
happen,
grabs a chair and, hey, I'm getting paid if I'm in that section. If I'm Karen, if I'm the girl laying on the bottom left of the photos, I mean, emotional trauma, physical trauma, my lower back's probably hurting a little bit. Yeah, Kansas, you got deep pockets. We know, Bill. We all know. We get it. You're going to pay me. Maybe some tickets for the rest of my life or something.
To pay some people.
Yeah. No, I mean, look,
beneficiary concert for the wounded.
Who was the guy that was hurt that was fighting too? The guy that looked like he was in street clothes. He was obviously a player because of how tall he was.
Or Kansas.
Either way, you can't be injured and be involved in the brawl, bro. Come on, what are you doing, right? If you can fight, you can play. That's what I'd be telling them.
So, Big 12 SEC Challenge this weekend. Tennessee is in Lawrence taking on Kansas, and ESPN Game Day with Jay Billis and the crew is going to be in Allen Fieldhouse, is where that broadcast is going to originate from Saturday morning. So that should be interesting.
Drama.
Kansas and Kansas State meet again February 29th in Manhattan. But just an ugly scene.
They really put 0.1 seconds back on the clock after that. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
And how do you decide which 5 players weren't involved enough to bring back out onto the court?
Right. In a 81-60 game.
That's what I'm saying.
Let's not overthink it, right? I did think that the officials almost all overthought, or did they overthink going to the telestrator last night, going to the teleprompter last night, and looking to see whether the ball was in or out on Florida at the end of the game? They give it to Florida with a half a second left in the game. Mike White draws up a fantastic inbounds play where he gets a wide open look. Absolutely gets a wide open look on a layup. Turns out that the buzzer sounds before Florida gets the shot off, and LSU hangs on to stay undefeated in league play. 84-82, they get the dub last night in the Merit Center.
That is my that was kind of my single sentence takeaway from the game. The review giveth, and the review taketh away. And Florida saw that. They saw that firsthand. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm still, like we said yesterday, was kind of like, let's start to dip our toes back into basketball. We're going to readjust. I did not see enough to give that ball to Florida and put half a second on the clock. It was pretty, like the ball got poked out. Maybe Skylar's hand grazed it on the way out. I was pretty surprised when they turned that over, but yeah, as I said, I mean, the next review, though, although it was close, it was also clear that the ball was in his hand. If he just released it a little bit earlier, he had it. But the ball was in his hand when the buzzer went off. So I was so ready to be salty, too. I was so mad, man. I mean, of course, Florida, when they have to hit these threes, they drain 3 in a row. LSU looked like they were dominating, too. Like, there was... When they got up by 11, what was it, about a minute and a half left? The previous 3 or 4 possessions was some of the most beautiful trap, full court press breaking I've ever seen in my entire life.
They cut that press like butter.
It was
they were getting
a thing
dunked.
of beauty.
They were getting run out dunks
every time.
I mean, they got 2 run out dunks on a press break. I thought Skylar, if he pulls the ball out at the end of the game, they win it. They just hang on by running the clock out.
So, yeah, the mistakes, that's what you say. So they had that perfect run of 4 or 5 possessions, and then you had Watford turn it over in the middle of the press.
And that was really the only true turnover at the end of the game. Everything else was just open shots by Florida that they knocked down.
And credit to them. I mean, they, like I said, they made the shots when they had to. But, yeah, so there was the Watford turnover, and then, as you said, Skylar looking again like maybe he was just going to roll to the basket unimpeded. Got a little out of control. If he brings that ball out, that's probably game. But you know what they say, Jordy? All's well that ends well. We mentioned LSU being able to out-rebound Florida. Look, this LSU team's just really damn good. They have so many options. Well, I guess it's kind of ironic because they don't play a ton of people, but everybody that plays can score. If 6 guys in double digits last night, you see what Marlon Taylor means to this team, going 10 of 11, 6 offensive boards.
And those boards were enormous.
Massive, man. Massive. The big-time thunderous dunk as well. Just what a win. And to me, timing-wise, so important for this team to get a little, some fan interest, get people right back into right with a packed-out PMAC to win that game. That was huge.
That was a huge test from my vantage point that LSU passed last night. When you looked at the 5 previous victories in conference play, there were some impressive ones, right? I mean, like going into Tennessee and winning the way that they did, coming home and winning in fashions, and going and extending that record again on the road against Ole Miss, at home when they were struggling to shoot the ball like they were against Mississippi State, only making 2 3-pointers, but getting out of that game with a win. Was impressive, but for me last night, like the last minute was ugly, but the first 39 I thought was very impressive from LSU as passing the test. And again, this is without Charles Manning. And I think that's one caveat that you got to remember, that they're starting this conference play with and building this confidence. So the ability to get Manning back within the next 3 to 4 weeks coming off that foot injury is going to be a nice jolt of enthusiasm and energy into the lineup again, just like Marlon Taylor was and has been. I mean, Taylor was a guy that got sent home last week from College Station because he had a setback in his foot. And anytime you have an athlete like the caliber of athlete that Taylor is, where he plays on the bounce, everything he does is on the bounce, not just his jumping ability. Watch him run. He's bouncing off of his steps. I mean, the way he slides his feet in defense, everything is pressure on the feet. You don't know how he's going to come back. And to see him have the night like he did and even play like he did against Ole Miss last Saturday night, then carry it over again here to the home game tonight. That was the most that was the part that you take away that leaves you with the most energy from LSU standpoint, that they're continuing to improve while they're still figuring some things out. The fact that they're undefeated and they still have questions within their own locker room that they're figuring out is a very positive sign.
I mean, how about this? They're not even shooting the ball particularly well. They're very inconsistent. They've had some good shooting days within last night. Jordy, maybe that's the wildest part, is that you win this game. Florida goes 11 of 30 from 3. You win this game going 2 of 14.
Yeah.
That's surprising.
That's rebounds, second chance opportunities that gets you those chances. Speaking of a great opportunity,
fighting into the basket, getting the free throw line. They've been excellent, not just at knocking him down when they get there, but 31 trips to the line for LSU last night compared to 11 for Florida.
Great opportunity for you over at Coy's Diesel. If you drive a light, medium, or heavy-duty diesel truck, you can learn about it at coysdiesel.com. But mention the OTB special. When you get over to Airline Highway, you can find their great location out there in Gonzales on Airline Highway. Fantastic shop. Ask them about the OTB special, and that's a $79 oil change with multi-point inspection. No appointment necessary. Just drive up. Ask for the OTB special. You hear that special in the oil change and you think maybe it's cheap oil. It's not. It's all factory filters and high-quality oil that they're serving you up over there at Coy's Diesel. Find out more online, coysdiesel.com. To pass the test last night with the rebounding advantage that you thought that Florida had with the height and the size.
Yeah,
I mean,
a couple 6'10" guys. You don't even
how
have
impressive
one.
is Blackshear?
Yeah, he's great.
I mean, down in the block. But like we talked about yesterday,
the reason why he was, SEC preseason player of the year.
Yeah, him and Johnson, really impressive. Johnson had 9 boards last night. Blackshear had 5 of them. But the way that LSU was able to keep these guys off the glass is just what Wade told us last week, what we reiterated right here on Off the Bench yesterday morning, and then we saw it play out last night, right? When LSU gets shots in the air, they're not going and trying to out-rebound the opponent. They're almost trying to out-rebound each other. Yeah. The way that Days and Williams and Taylor crash the glass, they're going to they're competing against one another. They're competing against their own team. Their athleticism to play above the rim when the shot gets in the air is an enormous advantage for LSU, and one that you look down and you see what they rebounded them by
10. They were 38, 28 as we look at notes. Yeah. And then double them up
8 on the offensive glass.
And that's the key right there.
And that's why they win the game in shooting like they did, T. You look at that shooting stat, you wonder how they can get there. That's why right there.
And it's a commitment, right? It's like you said, it's a philosophy. It's not just about physical side. This doesn't happen by accident. They didn't trip and fall into out-rebounding Florida. It's what they practice. It's winning with athleticism. It's just winning with committing to the glass. And it kind of speaks to another thing, Jordy, which is LSU's not winning these close games by accident. You know what I'm saying? It seems like there's a lot of talk of LSU escapes once again, or like they go, wow, how do they keep doing this? And there's this idea out there that LSU's just kind of getting by on luck and that eventually their day will come. And I'm not saying that they're not going to lose close games, because you absolutely will. But this is by design that LSU thrives in these situations. And I know we talk about it all the time, so almost doesn't bear mentioning again, but the commitment to the 6-minute game and getting yourself ready through meditation and mindfulness and sports psychology, so that when you're Skylar Mays and you walk up there and the game's on the line and you got to knock down 2 free throws, you're okay because you prepared for that moment and you're ready for that moment. And so if you look at last year and this year, I need to do a deep dive and get the concrete numbers, because, yeah, LSU consistently wins close battles, and it is not by accident. It is by design.
And we got to mention the Florida native Emmett Williams, as he had an enormous game last night. 19 points, 4 boards. He had his hands full on the defensive end, where he was affecting the game on both ends of the floor. And Emmett played really good last night, as he gave you 19 and 4. We'll talk to Wade.
What did Emmett tell us a couple years ago when we interviewed him in high school? He said, first you got to grind, then you get to shine. And he is starting to shine.